So you're dealing with Candida. I've been dealing with it for the past 15 years or more, and I'll tell you, one of the best things you can do is something you already know, and that is to eat an extremely low carb diet. Cut out all sugar, which really is healthy for all people, but you need to find out what a low carb diet is. Truly low carbs. You have to do that first. And then one thing that you might not realize is accessible to you, instead of looking for supplements and pills and cures like this, which we're kind of trained to think that way, two things that will work great are probiotics, but natural probiotics that you can either get at your supermarket or you can make yourself at home. One of them is sauerkraut, and the other is Kim Chi. Kim Chi is like a Korean fermented Napa cabbage dish, but it can be made from many vegetables. So the first one, sauerkraut. I'm not talking about store-bought sauerkraut in most cases. Nowadays, it is possible to find some good quality real sauerkraut, like the way they used to make it hundreds of years ago, or maybe just not so long ago. But the stuff they sell in the store that you put on hot dogs and stuff like that in the United States, that won't work. It has to be a truly fermented sauerkraut, and even those you have to try them. If they should taste tangy and fermented in your mouth. You'll notice the difference in the taste of it, and kimchi also. But the good news is you can make your own sauerkraut. It's actually really easy. Just look up a recipe online for it. But I'll tell you, you just get a green cabbage, typical green cabbage. Make sure it's really hard and perfect and in really good shape and condition. And then you just slice it up super thin like hair. Then you put in about a tablespoon of not iodized salt. It just needs to be like sea salt with no iodine in it. And so you cut up the cabbage like hair. You put in 1 tablespoon of sea salt on it, or salt that has no iodine in it. And then you just massage it with your hands. Massage it for about 10 minutes in a big bowl. It's going to produce a lot of liquid, and that's good. It's a lot of work, but you do it for about 10 minutes. You could do a couple of heads of cabbage, but I recommend trying 1 at first. And then you take all of that, the liquid and the cabbage, don't throw the liquid out, and you put it into a jar. And then make sure you push all the vegetable below the liquid in the top of the jar, and then you keep it in there for a few days, and in a few days it'll start to ferment. You'll see it starts to bubble. Put a plate or a deep dish underneath it, because a lot of times it'll spill over from it starts to swell. But find a recipe for making homemade sauerkraut. It's really easy to make. You could add some other ingredients sometimes, but I recommend doing it simple at first. That's a great way to get probiotics. That will feed the good bacteria in your stomach and your gut, and that will, not your stomach, but in your gut, and that will fight the Candida, and that will help you to get the balance. That's something that I eat every day. I eat some type of fermented vegetable every day. The other is kimchi. Kimchi, it depends on what your taste is. Nowadays, in a lot of supermarkets in the cities around the US, you can find kimchi. You just have to look around for it and try the different supermarkets in your area. You should be able to find some kimchi. They make it less spicy in the United States than the original stuff. And even though you might see sugar on the ingredients, this is important, because if you're fighting Candida and you're trying to eat a low-carb diet, then you avoid sugar. I just told you need to cut sugar out. It's really hard to find kimchi with no sugar on the label. But I eat it like every day, and it has sugar on the label, but I think it's just a tiny little bit of sugar that they add to the beginning process of the kimchi to feed it, to get it to start fermenting, because I have no negative reaction from it. What I get from my Candida acts up, I'll get rashes on my skin, like fungal rashes, and I don't get those from eating the kimchi even though it has just a little bit of sugar. Otherwise, I would definitely avoid buying any products with any sugar in them at all. I think that the fermentation process actually eats up the sugar, the small amount of sugar that they put in there. So that's what I recommend, is eating. You can make your own, but kimchi is a lot more difficult to make at home. Sauerkraut is easy to make at home when you see how easy it is, but you just have to try a few times. Some batches might not come out good. If you can find it already made, someone else makes it, or some farmer market or somewhere in the area they make it, then you can buy it that way too. But it should taste tangy, and I hope that helps. But definitely that's what I would do. Keep the carbs low and eat sauerkraut and kimchi, or any type of fermented vegetable actually.